Hey everyone and welcome. Dominic here with our Catholic Homeschool Neighborhood. Glad to be joined by Maureen Wittmann, Walter Crawford from Homeschool Connections. Welcome. How are you both?
Great. Thank you for having us.
Glad to be here.
Wonderful. So we're on a quest to help you to find the best fit for your homeschool life. This Catholic Homeschool Neighborhood introduces you to friendly creators and guides as you build your own homeschool neighborhood. I'm your host, Dominic DeSouza, a second-gen homeschool dad. So if you're not yet familiar with Homeschool Connections, we're going to get to that in a moment. But first, I'd like to help us all meet you both, Maureen and Walter. So take us to a moment in your life. Maureen, we'll start with you.
Okay.
A moment where you began to realize, I have to do something different, especially as it relates to homeschooling. And I think you mentioned it was in your, I think it was a college, in your college years?
Yeah. So 40 years ago, more than 40 years ago, I was a college student, just 18 or 19 years old. So 10 years before I ever had kids. But I had met a homeschooler who's in one of my classes. And I was so intrigued. I'm like, that's a thing? You can do that? Really? And he told me all about how he would get all his schoolwork done in the morning because, homeschooling doesn't take as much time, right? And he could just pursue his passions in the afternoons. And he just loved it. And he was this wonderfully well-rounded human being and good and kind. And I thought, I want that for my kids, So that was my first introduction to it. Back when I was in junior high, I had back surgery and I was out of school for 6 months, bedridden. And so I had a tutor come to my house every day. And it was the same thing, right? She did school with me for 2 hours a day, 4 days a week. And she had to hold me back so I didn't surpass my fellow students in the classroom. So that combined with meeting this young man in college, I just knew right then and there, like, I got to do this thing. This is so cool.
That's awesome. Walter, your turn. You mentioned something about a master's degree that just really triggered an insight.
Yeah. So my wife and I had just been married. In fact, I think we just had our first child. And in the course of that discussion, we started talking, or rather when the child was born, when our daughter was born, we're thinking, what are we going to do in terms of her education? But the tipping point for me was kind of walking through my master's degree in adult learning. And it occurred to me that through this process and through the kind of this idea of formal and informal education, that really most people do not learn, or rather they continue learning outside of the traditional space, right? The brick and mortar experience. Mm-hmm. In fact, that's where most of our learning occurs.
Yep.
So it occurred to me that why do we not expend that same amount of energy in the homeschooling space, or rather with our children outside of school? And it kind of, in a way, it kind of flipped. We flipped that script a little bit, and we said, let's look at homeschooling as an option. I was the instigator with my wife. She was a traditional schooler. She actually was a teacher in a Catholic school prior to our marriage, and so she was more inclined to go the traditional route. And here I am thinking, no, let's not do that. Let's at least look into homeschooling, and that kind of it was the first domino to fall, you might say, before we decided to go full on with homeschooling. And so that's kind of how we got to this point.
So, okay. So that's where you two are. How did you meet? And then how was Homeschool Connections born?
That's a good question. Walter, do you want to share? Or
let me start us off, because Maureen always gets to answer this question first.
And Walter's really the founder. I just came along later.
So we, in a nutshell, Homeschool Connections, its name was designed to fulfill one important requirement, at least I felt was important, is to connect parents with really wonderful, experienced homeschoolers, also speakers that talk at the homeschool, at these homeschool conferences. So the idea of Homeschool Connections was born, at least the name of it. And so it was really designed in the beginning to just connect speakers with parents, essentially, that would speak at traditional conferences. But a lot of parents appreciated that. But what happened is, as we begin to understand the audience better, and we listen to the audience, the parents kept saying, I love this idea. It's really great. I want you to keep doing it. But what I really need help with is educating my kids. A lot of the Protestants were already like head and shoulders above us when it comes to applying this webinar technology.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very foreign to many Catholic homeschoolers. But with Maureen's help, and she kind of came on, she was one of my original speakers. And it was through kind of putting the brain trust together, as it were. And we thought, let's try this. Let's try to bring education to Catholic homeschooling parents in spaces and areas of subject areas that they aren't familiar with, or maybe don't equipped to, they're not equipped to actually support their students in. So that was kind of how it all started. And there's some wonderful stories that surround that. But needless to say, I think it's fair to say that Maureen and I have always felt and continue to feel that the Holy Spirit is our CEO and kind of brought us together as not only as business partners, but as families. Our families love each other and we get along very well together, even though she is 1,500 miles away from here in Texas. So it's been a treasure to get to know Maureen and her family, I think, and she'll tell you this about me, but I feel like she's the cog, the heart and soul of Homeschool Connections.
No, it's Walter.
What is Homeschool Connections? What is it today? So you started with facilitating webinars, and then you began to discern. Okay, we need to add a new layer on here. What are you now? What is Homeschool Connections offering now?
I'll let Maureen answer that question since I answered the fun one.
We offer a whole lot. So we started with one little course and people loved it. And then we did 3 courses and then we did 6. And this year we have a total of, I think, 220 live interactive Catholic homeschool courses, semester-long courses for families, and almost 500 in recording. So we have 2 types of courses. We have live interactive, where you're meeting like in a Zoom room. You see and hear that teacher live. You're interacting with that teacher. You're interacting with your fellow students. It's very engaging. But we also have recorded courses, which are independent learning, self-paced, available 24/7. They never fill up. And, those are a little more economical. So we're trying to serve homeschoolers, specifically Catholic homeschoolers, where they need it the most. So we're not a school, we're not a program. We offer individual courses. So some people use this as a full curriculum, but you can also use this to supplement, whether that's with, another program or co-op or what you're doing at home. We have homeschoolers from all over the spectrum.
Who's the best kind of homeschooler who really thrives with what you offer with your courses?
I think probably just the homeschooler who's comfortable in exploring where their child is and what their child's unique needs are. So, we're not so much plug and play where, every 9th grade student takes the exact same course, right? They all take all different kinds of courses. So maybe you have a child who wants computer science or spaceflight science or financial math. So we have all those basic core classes. We also have those out of the box ones. So I think the people that really thrive at Homeschool Connections are people who just true homeschoolers, right? Who are looking at each unique child and seeing, okay, how am I going to adjust things for this child's needs, wants, the best way they learn, etc.
And I would just add to that, because I completely agree with Maureen. It's also the homeschooler that wants to be involved, but not necessarily, they don't want to be excluded from the process, right? Because one of the things that we want to be is an advocate for the parent and the student. We don't want to replace the parent. We want to support them. And by way, and with that in mind, with our classes, while they'll receive a grade with the live classes, typically, if the student is finding the work to be too challenging, then you draw it down a little bit. If it's not challenging enough, and that's not usually the case, but if it's not challenging enough, then you add on to it, right? So we are a wonderful supplement to the homeschooling journey. That it is always keeping in mind the needs of the students and the parents, not displacing them, but being a
Right.
tool for them to help their student grow in holiness and their maturity and knowledge.
Because the parent is the primary educator, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Maureen, you listed some just intriguing subject, topics. Who are some of the people, some of the speakers on your list?
Yeah. So, Walter said at the beginning, right, that we felt from the very beginning that the Holy Spirit is our CEO. And he truly is. He's just brought these amazing teachers to us. And some, names you don't know, but names you would know would be Joseph Pierce, Trent Horn, Gary Machuda,
Kim O'Brien,
Staples, Kim O'Brien, Henry Russell. We just have some rock solid teachers. Yeah, if you go to the website, you can click on About and click on Instructors, and you can see all the teachers. We have about 40 instructors at Homeschool Connections. You can read their bios and see videos with them. It's really
Each
really
one has this
there.
rash of amazing reviews below. Like the students and the parents just love some of the teachers and some of the courses. So how do people get how do people get it? What does it look like? Is it expensive? Is it a long commitment? Like how do families start using Homeschool Connections?
So, Walter and I are both homeschooling parents ourselves, right? So we know what it's like to live on one income in a 2-income world. I mean, that's what you need to do when you're a homeschooler, right? I mean, one of you needs to stay home with the kids. So we work really, really hard to keep it affordable. So, if you do the live interactive classes, they're individually priced based on the length of the course and the difficulty of the grading, the difficulty of the material, et cetera. So, that's going to vary, but compared to other online companies, they're very, very affordable. And then the really affordable option is the recorded, because it's more independent learning. You, the mom or dad, whoever is homeschooling, needs to be more proactive. So we supply what you need, and maybe grading services or answer keys, whatever you need to make that course happen. But it's very reasonably priced. So the whole family can take what we call unlimited access. So unlimited access is just what it says, unlimited. You can take any of the 500 classes anytime you want. You find yourself down a rabbit trail. You have a kid who loves cats. We have a course just on cats. So, and it's just $35 a month, and it's for the whole family. And we have parents who take our classes. We have these great college professors teaching for us. There's adult level material too. Very, very affordable.
Fantastic. Walter, any thoughts from you?
No, I think Maureen did a nice job of encapsulating that. I think we definitely want to, we have a sympathetic ear, as Maureen pointed out, to the plight of the general homeschooler, right? Seldom are we having deep pocket conversations with our parents. How many millions of dollars can you donate this year, Mr. and Mrs. Smith? That conversation hasn't happened yet. So we definitely want to be understanding and sympathetic to the situation, because which is why we do our best, right, to be that resource that is cost effective. I mean, it goes without saying, I think, that parents are, they're doing their best to try and homeschool their kids. And the last thing they need is something that costs a lot of money. And so our desire is to try and meet them where they're at as best as we possibly can, while not sacrificing the value of the educational experience. And by the way,
easy to implement, right?
Yeah, and I want to make sure that it's clear that not just the quality of the education, but how engaging it is, right? Our teachers are very passionate about what they do. They love what they teach. They're not asked to teach a class that they're not familiar with or that's not their background in. These are people that are fully engaged in the student's outcome. So they really want to help as best as they can in any way they can. And so all those things, if you take homeschooling by the horns, as it were, and you want to really be that person that really tackling it in the best possible way, we're a really good conduit for classes that you may not feel equipped to teach.
Yeah.
That's how this all started, and that's where we
Homeschool Connections, it really is the next step in Catholic homeschool education. I mean, I think the world's needed it for a long time, and you two have delivered it. So I'll drop the link in the description, homeschoolconnections.com. You can check it out. Maureen and Walter, my last question to you both. If you had 1 minute to share your favorite message about homeschooling, your personal message to homeschool families, what would you say, Maureen?
I would say it's not just about education. I mean, homeschooling is so much more. What do I love about homeschooling? It's not just, I always say I didn't homeschool to run away from something, but to run to something. It's a great way to raise your children. It is a great way to give your children a childhood that they will love and remember with fondness. It's a way to bring the faith to them. It's a way to grow as a family. And it's a way to spend your best time with them, right? I mean, if they're in school all day and when they come home, everyone's a little stressed, it's not my best time with them. So for me, it's a great way to educate your kids. But for me, it was the family life and just a beautiful way to raise my children. And my children are all adults now. Mm-hmm. So I can tell you that I've been there, I've been down the path, I've been where you are right now. And in the end, it is pretty amazing. They turn out to be pretty good adults.
That's awesome. How about you?
Yeah, I would echo those comments. I think for us, it's been the ability to connect with our children and have that unified bond, that real tight bond. Yeah. I'm not saying it's daffodils and daisies all the time. Of course, there are struggles, right? But that's with any decision. No decision's perfect. No decision's complete. However, I think for us, it's been those cherishable moments that I know would escape us if my kids were in the traditional school situation where, I remember going through it myself, and the difficulties that I personally experienced, my wife personally experienced when we were growing up and going to school. We were the latchkey kids, right? We'd come home at, from fourth grade, and my parents both worked, and we were always, having to button up the, lock the doors and, that sort of thing until mom and dad got home, which would be a couple hours after we got home from school. So there was always that aspect we didn't appreciate personally. And so we never wanted to impart that or impose that on our own children. Not to mention the fact we've grown closer as a family. I think it's one of the things that it goes without saying that it is, like Maureen said, we're running to something. We're running to each other, running to our faith. We're able to incorporate those. And by the way, one thing that's a benefit that hardly anyone ever talks about, the conversations that you end up having with your children, just the random conversations that kind of pop up, have developed them in such a way that we never saw coming. And it's that, and so it's led to their maturity that perhaps stands out above and beyond a lot of their peers. So we've grown closer as a family, and they themselves, the two that are almost, one's an adult, the other one's almost an adult, are showing by the way of the conversations with other adults that they are ready to take on the world and make it a better place, reflecting God, right, in all aspects of it. So yeah.
Beautiful. Well, thank you both for spending some time with us on this show. And then for those who are catching this, if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your one friend that you think would really like to see it. And then come and join us in the free homeschool community on CatholicHomeschoolCommunity.com. We will see you in the neighborhood. God bless everyone.
Thanks, Dominic. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Dominic. Bye.